We often go through life chasing achievements, ticking off boxes. But what happens when you reach a point, maybe your late 30s, 40s, 50s, and, well, despite the success, there's this quiet feeling that something's still missing?
Yeah, definitely.
Today, we're diving into a concept that speaks directly to that.
Yeah.
Halftime.
Exactly. And this idea, it comes from Bob Buford's book, Halftime, Moving from Success to Significance, is a really powerful lens, I think, for anyone who's reached a certain level of success but feels that, a yearning for something deeper, something that really resonates.
And Buford himself, he was a very successful businessman, wasn't he? Grew Buford Television significantly over, what, 2 decades?
That's right, a single station into a major cable operation. And the key thing is, he realized he needed this shift, this fundamental change in approach, but without a crisis forcing his hand.
Right, not burnout or failure.
No. And the core message, which still feels so relevant today, is that your most meaningful years, the ones where you really make a difference, they can absolutely be ahead of you.
It's also worth mentioning, I think, that the book has evolved since it first came out in '94.
Absolutely. The core principles are the same, but Buford added new stories. He specifically tackles that question of, okay, but what if I can't just quit my job?
Which is a big one for most people.
Huge. And he incorporated insights from readers who've navigated their own halftime transitions.
Which really speaks to its lasting impact, doesn't it? And it's not just us saying this. You see endorsements from some really influential figures.
Mm-hmm. Rick Warren talks about its unique power. Stephen Reinemund, former PepsiCo CEO, he highlights how inspiring and practical it is for making that shift.
From success to significance.
Exactly. And Frances Hesselben from the Drucker Foundation praised how it helps people focus on making their years count, meaningfully. Stephen Arterburn emphasizes how it really challenges you to examine your priorities.
So these endorsements, they point to the fact that halftime isn't just theory. It's grounded in Buford's own journey. And it gives you a tangible framework for rethinking things.
Definitely. So let's get into this halftime concept, maybe starting with Buford's own experience.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack that. What's interesting is, like you said, his realization wasn't triggered by hitting rock bottom or anything. He hadn't failed.
Quite the opposite.
Right. He'd built this thriving television business over 20 years. Buford Television was growing like crazy. But even with all that achievement, he felt this persistent sense that something was missing, that his game plan needed a serious rethink.
He even mentions feeling divinely protected from getting sidetracked by those common but ultimately kind of empty pursuits people chase when they feel that void.
It's fascinating, isn't it? That feeling of incompleteness popping up right alongside major external success.
Yeah, it wasn't a reaction to failure. It was more like reaching a plateau in terms of, well, personal fulfillment.
And Peter Drucker, in the foreword, he connects this to bigger social shifts, right? Longer lifespans, and the fact that more people actually achieve traditional success.
Exactly. Drucker points out that back when he was born, early 20th century, life expectancy was way shorter, like under 50 in the U.S. in 1929.
Wow. So the idea of a really substantial second half of life, especially a working life, just wasn't a thing for most people back then.
Precisely. So these longer lives, often with better health in middle age, create this whole new reality. People hit what used to be retirement age, and they might have decades of active life still ahead.
Which presents both new challenges and, well, huge opportunities for people navigating this halftime phase.
And Buford uses that great analogy to make it accessible life as a football game.
Right. You've got the first half, often a rush through milestones, school, job, family.
Yeah, that constant push to achieve, climb the ladder, get ahead.
But as the game goes on, Buford suggests just focusing on the score, more money, more stuff, more wins, it starts to lose its thrill.
Excitement kind of fades. And that's when halftime arrives. It's not just a break. It's this critical time for reflection, for reevaluation.
A chance to look back at the first half, see what really mattered, what didn't.
And then consciously decide how you want to play the second half. Buford even calls it a potential personal renaissance.
And this is where it gets really deep. Buford shares the questions he wrestled with. Questions I think many of us maybe ask ourselves, even if just quietly.
Like what?
Things like, has my work become my whole identity? Am I thinking about the bigger picture, an eternal perspective? What's my real purpose, my calling? What does having it all actually mean? What legacy do I want?
Wow. Heavy stuff.
Yeah. And ultimately, what does a truly well-lived life look like? These aren't surface-level questions.
No, they force you to look beyond the day-to-day. And a key moment for Buford was that very direct question from Mike Kami. What's in your box? Is it money or Jesus Christ?
That's stark. It forces you to prioritize your absolute core values,
Right.
your ultimate allegiance.
Exactly. Kami's point was you can only have one main thing in that box.
Okay.
Figure that out, and it clarifies everything else, especially your strategy for the rest of your life.
And for Buford, choosing Christ wasn't about ditching everything else, family, work, but about setting a central guiding principle that then shaped all those other areas.
It kind of reminds me of that City Slickers scene Buford mentioned.
Oh yeah, with Curly.
Jack Palance.
Right, where he says the secret of life is one thing, but you have to figure out what your one thing is.
And it's striking how many people hit middle age and, well, they haven't really figured out their one thing yet.
Which can lead to that unease, that void people try to fill with. Temporary fixes. More money, more wins.
But those don't answer the purpose question.
Exactly. It links back to Drucker's distinction. Efficiency doing things right versus effectiveness doing the right things.
Ah, okay. So halftime is the moment to ask, are all the things I'm doing right actually the right things for me? Are they my one thing?
Precisely. It's a reassessment.
So if the first half is often about chasing that external success, Buford sees the second half as this potential shift towards cultivating internal significance. Moving beyond just achieving to, well, making a real difference. And you see examples of this. Buford mentions Mayor Wilson Goode mentoring youth after leaving office.
Or Michael Jordan switching to baseball, even at the peak of his basketball fame. That wasn't about more success in the same field.
Right. It was driven by something else. And Buford's clear. Success isn't bad. It's often the engine of the first half. But it can leave you feeling empty once you get there.
He tells that story about the Harvard MBA, successful businessman who reached the top and just felt hollow.
Yeah. And the story of his friend Howard, the CEO, that's powerful. It took the tragic loss of his son to make him fundamentally reevaluate. Suddenly, the relentless business drive just lost its meaning.
And he shifted.
He began to transition, and that's really the core of it, isn't it? Significance, as Buford frames it, is about pausing, looking honestly at what's in the box, and then consciously reordering your life around that.
So for someone with faith, that might mean putting God at the center and letting that inform everything else, not just writing a check, but a whole shift in perspective.
And this transition often brings a sharper awareness of life's tensions, doesn't it? That balancing act.
Oh yeah. Love versus competition, people versus profits, family versus work.
And if you see those as just problems to be eliminated, Buford says you're probably still in that first half mindset.
But entering halftime means recognizing these tensions are, well, normal, maybe even beneficial.
Right. Not just normal, but potentially sources of creativity, of growth. Dr. Nash's research, which Buford mentions, points to balance and faith as key for handling them constructively.
Like Ecclesiastes 3, the time for everything passage. It's rarely about choosing one extreme.
Yeah, finding that equilibrium. Buford calls it the J-zone.
It's a J-zone.
Yeah, like the sweet spot between anxiety and boredom. He found that focusing on his one thing, his faith, helped him accept life's paradoxes more easily, navigate those tensions with more peace.
Okay, but making this shift, it doesn't have to be this massive overnight upheaval, right?
Not at all. And that leads to a really valuable idea. Low-cost probes.
Low-cost probes. I like that, like little experiments.
Exactly. Small, manageable steps to explore new interests, new ways to serve that align with your gifts and that emerging sense of purpose. Dipping a toe in before diving.
So like a business person offering some pro bono consulting to a nonprofit for a short project.
Perfect example. Or Buford's own probe. Inviting pastors to a meeting to see how his business skills might help their ministries. It let him learn and listen without this huge upfront commitment.
Which is so different from the first half tendency to just jump in full speed ahead.
Right. And then there's the half-speed option for people who need or want to stay put in their current jobs.
Okay, tell me about that, because a total career change isn't always realistic.
No. This is about using the mastery and experience you've already gained to work smarter, basically, to free up time and energy for second-half interests without dropping the ball on your main responsibilities.
Leveraging your expertise to create bandwidth.
Exactly. Like the lawyer Buford mentions, who cut back his hours at the firm still practicing law, but dedicated significant time to helping public schools.
So he integrated his second-half passion without leaving his profession entirely.
But of course, even these smaller shifts, they can stir up fear.
Oh, definitely. Why do people get stuck?
Yeah.
Buford compares it to the Israelites.
Yeah.
Right? hesitant to leave Egypt even for the Promised Land.
Yeah, it's the comfort of the known versus the uncertainty of the unknown. Fear of change, financial worries, what loved ones might think.
Yeah.
These are real barriers.
Things feel safe, familiar, even if they're not fulfilling anymore.
And Charles Handy's sigmoid curve is a useful visual for this.
The S-curve.
Yeah. It shows that what made you successful on one curve often won't sustain you. You need to start exploring the next curve before the first one dips.
The timing is crucial. Don't wait too long.
Buford really stresses that. Procrastination can mean missed opportunities, dwindling energy, that inner voice fading away.
Okay, so as you're navigating this, figuring out the next curve, Buford talks about a personal mission statement.
Yes, very important. And distinct from, say, a company mission statement that might have guided your first half. This is personal. It reflects your core values for the second half.
How do you even start crafting that?
Well, he suggests asking some probing questions. What are you truly passionate about? What achievements felt most meaningful? What are your unique gifts? How are you wired? Where do you belong? Even looking back at the shoulds that drove you before.
And Buford shared his own.
He did. To transform the latent energy in American Christianity into active energy. Clear, focused. And he linked it to specific life commitments, ways he'd live it out.
Drucker's questions seem relevant here, too. What needs doing? And what are my strengths?
Absolutely. Very practical starting points for defining that unique contribution.
Another key theme seems to be regaining control.
Yes. Buford uses that Zen master analogy, the overflowing teacup. You have to empty some things out to make room for the new.
Create space. Consciously manage your time, your priorities. Push back against that first half centrifugal force pulling you everywhere.
It's about getting back to your center, to what's in the box. And he gives practical tips. Schedule personal time. Work with people you actually like.
That helps.
Bring back play. Manage your communication. Like using voicemail to protect focused time.
And again, Drucker's principles. Build on strengths. Work with receptive people. Make a difference.
There's also that interesting discussion on healthy individualism.
Right. Addressing the idea that faith might discourage taking personal initiative.
Buford reframes it. He talks about the small self, the ego-driven part, versus the large self, connected to something bigger. Sacrificing the small self for a larger purpose actually leads to more fulfillment, not less.
Like the parable of the rich fool.
Exactly. And it connects to neighbor love, serving others, which has spiritual and practical benefits, better health, less stress. It's good for you.
Lifelong learning also seems to take on a different flavor in the second half.
Definitely. Buford says real learning often starts after school finishes. You shift from being a client getting a grade to a genuine student driven by interest.
Like that mechanic he mentions, learning about all sorts of things just because he was curious.
Yeah, that's the second half spirit. And ideally, this learning connects to your mission and leads to action.
How do you learn in this phase?
All sorts of ways. Classes, sure, but also just listening better, asking questions, podcasts, documentaries, conferences, talking to people, travel, the internet. It's about reclaiming that childlike curiosity, being okay with being a beginner again.
Okay, but let's face it, the money question looms large for many.
It does, and Buford tackles it head on. He stresses it's not just for the wealthy. It's about responding to that inner voice, whatever your circumstances.
He shares stories of people from different backgrounds finding significance.
Right, and he quotes Fred Smith Sr. about work being psychological glue, plus that flow research showing people are often more satisfied during engaging work than passive leisure. And Drucker's point about the shift to knowledge work is key here, too. Knowledge workers often stay productive longer, making second-half careers more feasible. Their value is in their strengths, not just a specific job title.
So when you reach halftime, Buford basically lays out 3 paths.
Pretty much. You can go away, retreat into leisure, check out. You can go back, revert to the old first-half patterns. Or you can go forward.
Embracing the uncertainty, the potential of that new, significant direction.
That's the one Buford champions. It holds the greatest rewards. He tells that story of John Snyder choosing significance over potentially vast wealth. Mission over money becomes the priority.
And finally, this 50-50 proposition. What's that about?
It's a metaphor, really, for an integrated life where your faith, your core values aren't just for Sunday morning. They infuse everything: work, family, community.
So moving away from a segregated life, work self here, family self there, church self somewhere else.
Towards an integrated life, driven by your core beliefs and choices across the board. It's about individual responsibility, making your values visible.
So at the end of the day, the choice is yours. You can coast towards retirement, maybe feeling unfulfilled.
Or you can grab this halftime opportunity, take ownership, and actively create a more abundant, purposeful second half.
So as you, the listener, reflect on your own journey, remember that halftime isn't some kind of ending. It's really a powerful invitation.
Yeah, an invitation for intentional thought, a conscious pivot towards a life of real significance no matter where you are right now.
We really hope you'll consider those big questions Buford raises, especially that fundamental one, what's truly in your box, and explore the potential for a second half that might be even more fulfilling than the first.
And the book itself has practical tools, a halftime assignment, more questions for reflection. They can be really helpful starting points.
Plus, for anyone wanting to dig deeper or connect with others thinking about this, check out halftime.org. Lots of resources there.
Yeah, definitely worth a look. So maybe the final thought to leave you with is this. What dormant passions, what untapped abilities might be waiting inside you right now, waiting for your halftime to be activated for something bigger than just your own success?